What's going on, people? Welcome back to On The Ball, and welcome back to another review show where we review our predictions for all the Premier League scorelines over midweek. Ben, unfortunately, isn't in the studio with me today, so going to have to be me alone looking at all the Premier League games, but we will go through all the scores. If you're new around here, how the scoring works is me and Ben make a prediction for every single Premier League game. If you get a correct scoreline, you get 5 points. If you get just a correct result, it's 1 point, and we both pick a star man. Once you pick that player, you can't pick them again for the rest of the season, and if they score a goal, you get 5 points. If they make an assist, you get 2 points. Now let's start with the review of the midweek's action. It was a barnstorming midweek with loads of goals, loads of talking points. So we'll start off at St James's Park. It finished Newcastle 1, Nottingham Forest 3. I went 1-1. Ben went 2-0 to Newcastle, so none of us get a point, but I did kind of predict Newcastle to struggle here. And, you know, after Newcastle went 1-0 up through a penalty from Alexander Isak, it did seem like it might have been a routine win for Newcastle, but Nuno Espirito Santo's Nottingham Forest showing signs of life under new management, and Chris Wood turning into prime R9 for some of those finishes for Nottingham Forest, really turning it around. A brilliant hat-trick for Chris Wood, turning up against his former club to haunt them on what turned out to be a really terrible day for Newcastle. Nottingham Forest playing some really good counter-attacking football, Langer causing Newcastle all sorts of problems, and Newcastle's form really doesn't seem to be set to improve anytime soon. That's only 2 wins in 8, 4 wins in their last 4 losses, in their last 5 games as well, and now down to 9th, really struggling with injuries and momentum as well. Eddie Howe was asked whether he was under pressure, seemed to laugh it off, but if this form continues to slide into the new year, considering they did bow out of the Champions League in the group stages, questions will be asked about Eddie Howe. Those questions won't go away until their form is improving, and when you're losing games at home to Nottingham Forest, that's when alarm bells do start to ring. When it comes to Nottingham Forest, so Nuno has made a good start to his Nottingham Forest career. They gave a really good fight at home to Bournemouth last week when they were down to 10 men, and a fantastic away win to Newcastle will really give Nuno Espirito Santo hope that they can really claw their way out of a relegation battle and claw their way to safety. It's been a very encouraging start, and definitely the form he's got Chris Wood in is very, very impressive. So we'll have to wait and see how Nottingham Forest continue under Nuno, but pretty decent start for him. But none of us get points, so still 233 to 233. Next up, we go to the Vitality as Bournemouth took on Fulham. It finished 3-0 to Bournemouth in what was a very convincing victory. I went for 2-1. Ben went for 3-0, so we both only get a point, but Ben was only one Fulham goal away from 5 points. Very convincing victory for Bournemouth. Well on top throughout the 90 minutes. In fact, Fulham only created 0.28 XG throughout the 90 minutes. I think that tells the story with how Bournemouth was so dominant, especially throughout the pitch, and how Fulham really struggled to create any good quality chances. Alex Scott really coming into form now. A new signing in the summer. He's obviously been played with injury throughout the season, but he's now been in the team for a few weeks, and against Fulham really started to shine, and I thought put in a fantastic display. His mazy run for the opening goal for Justin Cliver was a fantastic piece of play, and that really highlights what he is capable of in a Bournemouth shirt, and as a young player as well, I think he's got a really bright future, and he was one of the standouts throughout this game for Bournemouth. Dominic Slanky with a penalty made it 2-0, and a Sinisterra banger from 25 yards made it 3 for Bournemouth, and that is now 8 wins out of 10 games for Bournemouth in what is an astonishing run of form. 4 consecutive wins now for them as well. Takes them up to 12th, and Iraola is doing an astounding job. Probably the form team in the Premier League, which is absolutely bonkers to think about considering he was 1 game away from being sacked. Iraola is doing one of the most amazing jobs I've definitely this season in the Premier League. Fulham, though, 3 consecutive losses now after a brief good run of form after 2 consecutive 5-0 wins. They're now on a run of 3 really poor defeats as well. They were not in the game at all against Bournemouth, and Fulham are really struggling at the moment. Look, they are away from the relegation zone, albeit with Luton's form, which we'll talk about in a minute. They are only 6 points away, so I think they will have half an eye on maybe just staying away from that relegation fight. At the moment, they're only 2 games away from Luton, so they are kind of being dragged into it. Bournemouth, on the other hand, they're now 10 points clear of the relegation zone, and any relegation fears seem to be subsided by this incredible run of form that they are on. They do take on Spurs next, so it's going to be very interesting to see if they can carry on that run of form. Solanke, by the way, up to 13 Premier League goals. What a season he is having. Absolutely brilliant stuff from him. Next up, so 234 each because 1 point each. Next up, we go to Sheffield United. They were at home to Luton in what was an absolutely topsy-turvy barnstorming game. It finished 3-2 to Luton, but that doesn't half tell the story of the game. Alfie, I went 0-0. Ben went 1-0 to Sheffield United to 9. Neither of us get a point in this game. Alfie Doughty gave Luton the lead in the first half after a really bad mistake from Foderingham, just kind of squeezing the ball in at the near post. But Sheffield United definitely came out flying in the second half and turned things around fairly quickly. Within 20 minutes of the second half, Ollie McBurney equalised and Anel Amduzovic put them 2-1 up on 69 minutes. It looked for all the world to see Sheffield United had all the momentum, and it was all Sheffield United going into the latter stages of the game. But Luton getting the biggest strike of luck I think you're ever likely to see was 2 own goals on the day, which turned things around for Luton. And obviously you make your own luck, and Luton, swung the ball into the penalty area a couple of times, and Jack Robinson headed into his own net, and then Slimani, somehow a cutback he just stuck a leg out and it went looping into his own net. And all of a sudden Luton, on the 81st minute, after being 2-1 down on the 69, they were 3-2 up on the 81, and it was an incredible turnaround there. Really lucky, I felt, Luton to get 3 points here. If you look at kind of the chances created, look at the XG, 2.59 Sheffield United, 0.63 to Luton. So I think on the day they can consider themselves very, very fortunate to get all 3 points. Really gutting for Sheffield United, whose form and performance level has improved since Chris Wilder has taken over at Sheffield United. But Luton, 2 consecutive wins, taking them to 15 points now, only 1 point behind Everton, 2 points behind Nottingham Forest, 3 points behind Palace, and most crucially, they have a game in hand as well after the game against Bournemouth got abandoned. So they've really put themselves in amongst it when it comes to the relegation battle now, and it's really, really promising for Luton, considering they look for the world to see they were going to be really struggling to keep themselves up, but they're making a great fist of it, and that's 2 consecutive wins now, and they're now between them and 13th, which is Fulham. There's only 6 points, so definitely putting the cats amongst the pigeons when it comes to a relegation fight. Sheffield United, on the other hand, very damaging defeat. A bit of a 6-pointer here when it comes to them losing this game, because if they would have won, it would have left them only 4 points off 17th Everton. That loss, though, leaves them 7 points behind, and it's a long way now clawing themselves out of this relegation fight. Bottom of the league with only 9 points. They look doomed of all the clubs at the moment, Sheffield United. But under Chris Wilder, they have improved their performances, so maybe we're speaking too soon before condemning Sheffield United. But scores 234 each here. We go to Turf Moor as Burnley faced Liverpool. It did finish 2-0. We both went 3-1 as well, so we both get a point. Very interesting game. The beginning of the game was all Liverpool. They took the lead very early on through Darwin Núñez. Clinical finish from the edge of the area. Something maybe people don't associate with Darwin Núñez with some of his misses. And for a lot of the game, it was all Liverpool. They were creating chance after chance, especially in that opening 20 minutes or so. It really could have been 3 or 4-0 in the opening exchanges. James Trafford made a number of good saves. And there was a really interesting moment. Liverpool had a goal ruled out in the second half. Cody Gakpo, it was Harvey Elliott with the goal, tapping home at the near post, and it looked like that was sealing the game for Liverpool, but a VAR decision deemed that Mo Salah was in the way of the goalkeeper, and that really, for some reason, gave Burnley some momentum, having that goal ruled out, and it seemed to really dampen Liverpool's spirits, and for about a 10-15 minute period after that goal was ruled out, Burnley did seem to get a bit of a foothold in the game, a bit of control, and it seemed like they were maybe making a good go of just trying to get a late point. Never really threatened too much to get back in the game, but they were definitely more in the game in that latter part of the game than they were for the majority of it. They gave it a good go. They couldn't really hurt Liverpool and get any chances over the line. And Diogo Jota sealing the win for Liverpool late on, and they do end the weekend top of the league after that victory. Again, from Liverpool's point of view, Good performance in the first half, laboured again in the second, wasn't overly too impressive, but the performance level hasn't been at the highest standard recently, but they did get another win, another clean sheet as well, and they currently do have the best defence in the league, so when it comes to numbers, you can't really complain with that if you're a Liverpool fan. Up to 42 points as well after 19 games, really showing their title credentials. Burnley, on the other hand, now on 11 points, 19th in the league, 5 points from safety. Decent performance. They'll take heart that they didn't get absolutely battered, albeit on another day it could have been a different scoreline. But performances have been increasingly getting better for Burnley, but still no points to show for it. So very, very disappointing for them. 235 on the score sheet there each. Next up, we go to Old Trafford in what was a fantastic game between Man United and Aston Villa. It finished 3-2 to Man United. I went for 2-2. Ben went for 2-0 to Aston Villa. And it was 2-0 Aston Villa after the first half. Two really poor goals for Man United to concede. First goal was a John McGinn free kick which went straight through Onana, no touch whatsoever after he crossed the ball in. One of the most interesting set-piece tactics I've ever seen from Aston Villa, where Leon Bailey was hanging around Onana, clearly in an offside position, when just before McGinn went to take the free kick, he just walked away, left Onana a bit distracted, but wasn't really involved in the play, and the ball went all the way in. So you have to say, really inventive kind of set-piece kind of trickery from Aston Villa, and it completely dumbfounded Andre Onana and put Villa 1-0 up. The second goal, a free header from Clement Longley finding Leandro Dondonka, and on his first start for Aston Villa, he did put Villa 2-0 up at Old Trafford, and it looked like it was going to be one of those days for Man United where things weren't clicking. It was going to look like a real off day for Man United, but they did turn things around. They came out in the second half with a completely different mentality. They really took the game to Aston Villa, and Villa really struggled in that second half to contain Man United. And there'll be a bit of alarm bells ringing for how Man United were able to completely dominate Aston Villa in that second half, and they will be worried with how easily Man United were able to break their high line so consistently, create so many chances. Rashford was getting in on that left-hand side time and time again. He got through a couple times before Garnacho scored his first goal. Garnacho had a one goal ruled out for offside, and then Annie hit the post as well. He then gets the first goal with another brilliant play from Rashford, a cross-face goal. Garnacho scored. Garnacho then gets a second goal with a deflected effort, and the winner from Rasmus Højlund. He waited for a miracle, and it finally came in this game with the winner with a brilliant volley from a corner. Bit of a mistake from John McGinn to let the ball bounce towards him, but it was a brilliant finish, and you can see the relief in his eyes as he got his first goal for Man United in the Premier League as a £70 million signing, and it was a good finish, and maybe that is a sign for things to come from Man United. I wouldn't say this game was overly impressive overall for Man United when it comes to being really convinced that this is set to be a turning point for them. We have seen games where they've beaten the likes of Chelsea with an impressive victory, then they follow it up with another meek performance. So I'm going to wait to hold my judgment on Man United if this is a turning point for them. But it does take them up to 7th, 5 points behind, or 6 points behind 4th placed Man City. Aston Villa, on the other hand, disappointing. Following on from a draw at home to Sheffield United, they'll be very disappointed that they had a 2-0 lead at Old Trafford and they gave it up so easily. But they do still remain in 3rd place, so not all bad Aston Villa at the moment. 235 each in the scores. Next up, we go to Brentford at the GTEC Stadium. It finished Brentford 1, Wolves 4. I went for 1-0 to Brentford. Ben went for 2-1. How wrong were we both? And it was a game of mistakes for Brentford, because Nathan Collins has to be hanging his head in shame with some of the goals he allowed in this game. The first one was from Mario Lemina, though, a cross from Paulo Sarabia, a deep cross from a corner. Lemina coming in at the back post to head home, put Wolves up 1-0 up, probably against run of play, but they were 1-0 up. And then straight from the kickoff, unbelievably, the ball gets played back to Nathan Collins. He isn't aware of his surroundings. He plays it back to the goalkeeper, completely underhits the pass, and there's Hwang Hee-chan getting his 10th goal of the season. What a season he is having. And he rounded the keeper, made it 2-0. Awful moment from Nathan Collins. But Wissa responded extremely quickly. He had a brilliant game, I thought, throughout Johan Wissa in this one. He got the goal straight back after a good piece of play for Neil Paul Maupay, and it seemed as though Brentford were back in the game, but only 10 minutes later, Hwang Hee-chan with a brilliant piece of skill, flicking the ball over the defender's head and then coolly finishing pushing past Flecken to make it 3-1 to Wolves. And at 3-1, regaining that lead, it was a massive moment for Wolves to going on to get 3 points, because they had Brentford exactly where they wanted them, just sat deep, waited for the counter-attacks, and they did come. Bellegarde in the last 10 minutes, and again capitalising on another loose pass from Nathan Collins. Falls to Matthias Cunha. He lays it on for Bellegarde. It made it 4-1. Very, very disappointing for Brentford on the day, and they're in very bad form. 4 consecutive losses now, and currently only 4 points above the relegation zone, so definitely keeping half an eye on that relegation battle. I do think they will be good enough at the end of the day to stay clear, but at the moment their form definitely has to improve if they're going to ease any worries of relegation. From Wolves' point of view, up to 11th. Brilliant job Gary O'Neill is doing. Now 10 points clear of the relegation zone, and in fact level on points with Chelsea, and only 4 points behind Newcastle on current form. So potentially Bournemouth looking up, Wolves looking up rather than down at the moment with the form they're on. So brilliant away win. Did benefit from a lot of individual errors from Brentford, but you have to capitalise on them. That's exactly what they did. So it finished 4-1. We moved to Stamford Bridge. Chelsea 2, Palace 1. I went for 1-0. Ben went for 1-1, and it did finish 2-1 to Chelsea, so they did scrape past Crystal Palace. I did feel like Chelsea probably on the balance of play deserved the victory. I didn't think it was overly impressive. They did take the lead early. Good piece of play from Malo Gusto, starting a really good team move, finding Nkunku, who played it back to Gusto, who put a really good ball into Mudryk, who just finished off a really good team move. And Chelsea, again, it seems to be a theme, having a host of chances in the first half, not taking full advantage of them, and they did get hit with a sucker punch right into stoppage time in the first half. Michael Olise taking down a brilliant ball from Eze, first touch and volley into the corner, and it was a brilliant goal, making it 1-1. And again, Chelsea must have felt like they had seen this script before, because not taking full advantage of their chances and then getting hit with a sucker punch down the other end. It seemed as though the same formula was going to hit them, but in the second half, it was a weird one, because Palace, I felt, had a really good start to that second half. They were the ones actually making the running, and it actually took, I think, till the 70th minute before Chelsea had another attempt on goal. But it was a good one, because Conor Gallagher plays through Nick Jackson, and he's through 1-1. It looked for the world to see Chelsea were going to go 2-1 up again, but he missed his chance. Then he had a goal ruled out for offside when the original decision was a goal, and it looked like Jackson had made up for that miss, but because he was offside, the goal was ruled out, and it remained 1-1 up until very late in the game, where Noni Madueke gets brought down by Eze. Again, the referee doesn't initially give it, but thankfully for Chelsea, the VAR goes back to look at the incident. I did think it was a Stonewall penalty. I did think it was the right decision from the VAR to give the penalty. And Noni Madueke steps up, sends the keeper the wrong way, and made it 2-1 to Chelsea. And they were able to hang on for that victory as well, which makes it their second win in their last 3 games. Again, a good win for them against a tricky Palace side, but if I was a Chelsea fan, still not overly impressed, still not convinced yet that they're on the right path just yet, but it was a very good win for Chelsea, and you've got to take each 3 points as it comes. I don't think it was a win that's going to relieve too much pressure unless they follow it up with another good performance on the weekend. But I get a point for that. Ben doesn't, so 236 to me, 235 to Ben. We move to Goodison Park as Everton played Man City. It was a fantastic game of football at Goodison Park. It finished 3-1 to Man City. Everton looked like they were going to continue their good form after they took the lead with a brilliant goal from Jack Harrison after good work from Dwight McNeil on the wing. He got another assist on the day, and it looked like Everton looked like they were going to put another good performance against another really good team. Going 1-0 up, in City were really struggling to create good quality chances, and it looked like Everton were going to bloody the noses of the big boys yet again. But City came out in the second half with a kind of a rocket up their arse. That's the only way I can describe it. Pep Guardiola clearly had a lot to say in that second half, and they completely turned it around, and it was a very dominant and deserved victory. Phil Foden with a brilliant finish on the edge of the area, and then a very controversial penalty, which Sean Dyche was not happy about in the second half. A foul, a handball by Andre Onana was given by the referee. It looked like the referee was influenced by a lot of the Man City players crowding him, but on reflection, it did seem the assistant was the one who signalled for the penalty there, for the handball. Onana is just trying to block the shot from, I think it was Phil Foden. Sorry, it was Nathan Ake. He was just trying to block the shot. I felt his hand was in a natural position, but in modern day, if your arm is above your head, they're always going to give the penalty. He threw himself at the ball to block the shot. He did block the shot, but unfortunately for Onana, the penalty was given and dispatched by Alvarez, to the frustration of Everton. And then a nice finish from Bernardo Silva, capitalising on a Pickford mistake, finished 3-1 to Man City and puts them in a really promising position now, Man City. 37 points in fourth, just above Spurs with a game in hand as well. And if they do win that game in hand, they're now up to second. So really, despite some poor form of late, definitely not out of this title race by any means necessary. If anyone did think they were, only 3 points off second place Arsenal, who are only 2 points off the top. So really showing their title credentials again. Everton, on the other hand, despite some really good form, 2 consecutive losses has left them only 1 point above the relegation zone. So despite playing really, really well, and I'm sure they'll be confident of keeping themselves away from the drop, only 1 point away is definitely concerning. So have to start picking up some points again after some good form, but can't allow this losing run to continue for much longer. We move to the Amex next. It finished Brighton 4, Tottenham 2. I went for 2-2. Ben went for 3-1 to Spurs, so no points either way. And Spurs struggled in this game. I don't think there's any two ways to look at it. They were second best. Brighton completely deserved the victory. The first half was absolute one-way traffic dominance from Brighton. 2-0, if anything, flattered Spurs in that first half. It really should have been 3 or 4 with some of the chances Brighton created. They hit the post twice. Vicario made 3 or 4 amazing saves, and they scored 2 goals as well, including a penalty from which VAR was gave after a shirt pull from Kulusevski. Spurs came out in the second half with a trying to change things, missed a few chances right in the early on, but Estupinian with an unbelievable strike making it 3-0, and then another penalty later on making it 4. But doesn't tell the full story, because at 4-0 and with the game done, it seemed that 3 points was definitely going to Brighton, but Spurs with 2 quick-fire goals got themselves right back in the game in those last 15 minutes, and it seemed that the pressure was on all of a sudden. Brighton, they were panicking a bit. Tottenham were really piling on the pressure. They had belief that they could go on and get another couple of goals, but unfortunately they hit the post. Steele made some saves, and they weren't able to get themselves back in the game. They left themselves too much to do, unfortunately, with too little time, and the game did finish 4-2 to Brighton. In terms of where that leaves both teams in the table, really good win for Brighton. Their first win in 4. So they needed that. They needed the points. Puts them in 8th above Newcastle. Still 7 points off the top 4, but definitely only 3 points off West Ham and 6. So definitely put them in amongst it for the European positions. Tottenham, on the other hand, still on 36. Poor loss, but only 6 points off top, 4 points off second. So definitely in and amongst it in the fight for Champions League. So not too damaging overall, but the performance is definitely a bit of a concern from a Tottenham point of view. But neither of us getting points. And the last game of this midweek was Arsenal against West Ham. It finished 2-0 to West Ham in what was the shock result of the midweek. Me and Ben both went 2-1 to Arsenal, so neither of us get a point there. And look, I feel like, to be honest, this result has been coming for Arsenal. I know they will probably point to some of the chances they missed and being a bit unlucky, but West Ham can do this to any team with their defensive quality and the quality they have going forward. Kudus, Bowen, Paquetá, some of the best forwards in the Premier League they've got at their disposal, and they really took Arsenal. They played a real clever tactical game. They didn't give Arsenal too many chances, albeit Arsenal did have 30 shots on the day, which led to an XG of 2.77, but they didn't capitalise on it, and West Ham on the counter-attack were able to just pick their moment to strike. But this game again was mired in controversy. Souček's goal was deemed to have stayed in play after Jarrod Bowen looked to have kept the ball in, but upon replays, there was inconclusive evidence that the ball had gone out. Bowen was blocking the camera angle, which would have conclusively told us if the ball was still in play. And that, again, has frustrated Arsenal fans because, the same thing happened at Newcastle, where they thought the ball was out. The referee deemed the ball to have stayed in, and there was no conclusive evidence to say otherwise. The goal was given. Same thing has happened here against West Ham. The second goal was given from a corner. Ward-Prowse, a brilliant cross. Mavropanos' header made it 2-0. And what would have been a really ironic moment late on in the game where Declan Rice conceded a penalty, but Rama wasn't to take full advantage. But when I say Arsenal, I felt like this result has been coming because they just haven't been at their explosive best this season. I felt for a lot of the season. I feel like their attacking play hasn't been at the same level as it was last season. I think the fact that Saka, Jesus and Martinelli only have 10 goals between them, I mean, this is less than Heung-min Son alone, I think goes to show that they're probably not on the same level attacking-wise this season as it was last season. And when they get hit by sucker punches by West Ham, who, by the way, have now won 4 of their last 5 games, I feel like they just didn't have the sharpness to break this really a rigid and frustrating West Ham backline. And when their attack isn't as bright and as sharp as it was last season, it makes games at West Ham at home even more difficult. And I felt like Arsenal have been asking for a result like this with some of their performances of late. That's one win in their last 4 games as well, so very disappointing period, but only 2 points off the top, so nothing to be too overly concerned about from an Arsenal point of view when it comes to the table, but definitely will be disappointed with what was a really poor result at home to West Ham. But West Ham now only 3 points off the top 5, so definitely putting themselves in and amongst it when it comes to the European places and battling for top 4. I don't believe this form is sustainable. I know they're in a great run of form and they've got some great results. They beat Spurs away. They've beaten... They've just had some really, really good results of late, playing some really big teams and getting some big wins, beating Man United as well. But for me, is this form sustainable long term? I have my doubts. We'll have to wait and see, but can't take any credit away from Moyes. I've criticised him this season for some of the football they've played, but they are up to 6th, and I don't think West Ham fans can expect much more than that, albeit for me, they got one of the best front lines in the Premier League with Kudus-Bone and Paquetá. But no points each for that one. We go on to the star men. I picked Nkunku, who did absolutely nothing at home to Palace. Ben picked Richarlison, who did have 2 goals ruled out through offside, so he'll be very, very frustrated with that one. But neither of us get any points from the star men. So at the end of the game week, it's 237 to 236. Stay tuned, as we will have the preview for this weekend's fixtures as well on the channel very, very shortly. But that is all for your review show for this midweek game. That's all we've got time for. Let me know in the comment section below anything we discussed today. Like, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you next time.